And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara. This is season 2, episode 4. Really exciting show tonight as we welcome a very special guest, one of the greats ever to wear the JMU football uniform in Percy Agyei-Obese. He will join the discussion in a few minutes, but wanted to say right off the bat, as always, JMU Sound Off is brought to you by the team at the Montpelier Collective. We mentioned at the top of every broadcast just how all of us here at Sound Off are really invested in promoting the brand. And we encourage each and every one of you who are able to learn more about the collective, and you could do so at montpeliercollective.com. Been a really exciting week in JMU football camp week 3. And as always, want to bring in the other members of our team here on Sound Off, Taylor Atkins, Steve Brown, and Michael Evangelista. We did want to say off the top to all of our listeners, we are noticing your feedback as we continue to grow this platform, seeing tremendous growth, especially on our podcast audio version of it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So to the people who have liked it, shared it, left the comments and reviews on that, just know that we're seeing that and know how important that is to us being able to grow this brand. And we're always going to say thank you to the people who tune into this broadcast, whether it's on the live feeds, on our Facebook account, on Instagram, where we're going to be doing a lot more content over the coming weeks, on YouTube, and of course on Twitter. So if you are somebody who's new to our broadcast, please, if you know people in the JMU community who might be interested in these weekly conversations, not only yourself like these pages, but please share them with the JMU community and encourage more people to like and interact with them. The more interaction and engagement we get, the more we can grow this. And with that, Taylor Atkins, I know you've been around town, obviously bringing in some other former Dukes in Kyle Yeager this weekend, as well as Taylor Schwabach, some people out in the community, if they're listening. Always great to see those pictures you share, and Michael and Steve as well. How's everybody's week going?
It's good. We're 2 weeks from the season. Had some Dukes in town last couple days. We had a bonfire with some guys from church, and including our buddy Josh Wright, big again Virginia Tech Hokie, but he married into JMU, big JMU fans, following the program and watching the show. So another shout out to Josh Wright tonight.
Awesome. I couldn't wait till September 23rd. So I flew out to Utah this past week for work, just to do a quick test run.
Yeah.
Flying out west, and can't wait to be back. It's beautiful out there, but looking forward to seeing many of you listeners and all of you folks all over JMU Nation and on Twitter on September 23rd in Logan, Utah, when we take on the Utah State, I think, Bulls. Is that what they are?
I think so, yeah. That sounds right. Somebody will correct us in the comments, no doubt.
Sure. I hope so. If you know the mascot of Utah State University, comment below and
let
correct
us know. And Steve, obviously, you got a chance to go up to see a little bit of practice action in your role as an alpha dog this week. Tell us about your week with JMU football.
Okay, the Marching Royal Dukes sound really good.
That's awesome. And we look. No, we know we're going to respect the rules of what you can say on Sound Off, but I've heard that as well. And promo for a future episode, working behind the scenes to actually get somebody from the Marching Royal Dukes to join us on a future broadcast to give us some of the inner workings of what it takes to put on one of the more amazing shows you're going to see in the marching band world. Over 500 strong again this year for the Marching Royal Dukes. So to any of the MRDs who are listening, we're excited to see what will be a tremendous product. And we know you guys are working hard for all our focus on the JMU football camp and what's going on. We know that you guys are in camp as well as you prepare for the season. Students coming back on campus this week. This was week 3 of camp. We want to encourage you, as always, to follow Noah Fleischman and the other reporters who have been out at camp. JMU Sports doing a really great job sharing some content each and every day from those practices, whether it's the interviews with Kirk Signetti, the players who are offering their comments, and a lot of content from Dave Riggert and the other journalists covering the team. I thought the team behind JMU, the video team's done some really great behind the scenes content, as well as some fun after practices, asking the players some questions each and every day to engage on Instagram. This week also, we had Meet the Dukes Day last night. Looked like a big crowd on campus getting to interact with the athletes from across the JMU sports landscape. Many of those teams are starting to already have their first competitions of the year. The soccer teams getting onto the field, as well as JMU volleyball had their first scrimmage in the newly renovated JMU Convocation Center. So if anybody has not had a chance to see that facility, I encourage you to check out the JMU Sports social accounts. Another example of the commitment that JMU Sports has made to enhancing facilities across the athletics landscape. And just bravo to Jeff Bourne and everybody in facilities who's done a tremendous job making that facility really come back to life. The storied history of the Convocation Center. And I know for me personally, just a really great way to give that energy, some new energy to a building that means a lot to a lot of people across the JMU landscape. And with that, we also realized when we started off this podcast that neither of us have had a chance to really introduce ourselves to the audience, to let you know who we are, especially to the new people who have come to JMU Sound Off. So we'll kick it off with me. I am Jonathan McNamara. I live in the Richmond area. I am a 2005 grad of James Madison University in the SMAD department, living in the Richmond area, working for the American Red Cross, and have been involved as a season ticket holder for JMU football since graduating, as well as serving as a Duke Club rep and other functions in helping to advance the Duke Club and help raise support for JMU. And have been a proud member of Section 109, the section where Taylor Atkins will be joining us this season, as a section of proud JMUers who stand throughout the game. And that's a tradition started by Barry Santamond and other people who have brought people into that section as we try to be the loudest section in Bridgefort Stadium. And looking forward to another season with my wife and 2 kids in Section 109 this year as we root on the Dukes, as well as going to some away games. And with that, give Taylor a chance to introduce himself as well.
Taylor Atkins, 2007 graduate of James Madison University. Worked about 12 years in college athletics, 6 of those at JMU, and then went down to San Antonio for 6 years while they started up their football program. So it was really neat to have an experience outside of JMU, and just really to see how fortunate and blessed JMU is to have the facilities, the fan base, the program. We got a chance to see a lot of other schools around the country, and JMU really does have something special. We relocated back to Virginia in 2021. We're down here in Botetourt County, Virginia, just outside of Roanoke, and married to my wife, Mandy, and our 2 kids, James and Harrison, and we cannot wait to be in Bridgefort this fall.
All right. And Steve Brown, a man who I think needs no introduction, but to some out there, Steve, if people aren't familiar, give us a little bit of background in your experience and the role that you play with JMU athletics, both as a fan and as a supporter.
Well, I'm the oldest one on this deal by a long shot. Class of '84, been supporting JMU for 40 years. My wife and I met. She was the manager at Duke's Grill. She hired me in 1983 to work for her, and our first date was the JMU UVA football game in 1983. So this will be the 40th anniversary of our first date. I'm one of the alpha dogs. I'm on the board of the Montpelier Collective, and so do a lot of work behind the scenes and sit and cheer. Have been doing it for years. Love JMU. Can't wait. Everything's purple. Everything's gold. When you see Virginia Tech people, just say 21-16. That's all you have to say.
Awesome. And last but not least, Michael Evangelista. I think a lot of people know you from your Twitter handle, but there's a man behind that account. Give people a little insight into your background with JMU and some of the stuff you do other than just amazing recruiting analysis.
Love that. Appreciate it. So what's up, guys? My name is Michael Evangelista. Like John said, y'all probably know me as Michael_2Clutch on Twitter. I am a 2012 grad. Sorry. Been a Rabbit fan, ticket season holder ever since. Moved to DC right out of school. So did that 2.5-hour trek to every home game as physically possible over the last 10 years. But then recently just moved over to Central Virginia, right outside of Charlottesville. So September 9th is going to be a very interesting time in the Evangelista household. But as John said, I'm a bringer of all things recruiting, personal insights, hot topics for anything related to JMU football. But more importantly, proud convocation lot tailgater, as contrary belief as from everyone says. I need to move to P-Lot and other places, but love the convocation lot. Shout out to Mike Morris, Ryan Schnurr, and the rest of the gang over there, and breakfast in the morning. So we've been doing that for like the last 10, 11 years. But excited to be here. Thanks everyone again for listening in. We love the fan support, fan feedback, fan insights. And speaking of introductions, I want to welcome one of the, if not the greatest running back to ever play at James Madison University. He is in the top 5 of every significant statistical category as a running back. We've got Mr. Percy Agyei-Obese on the podcast today. What's going on, Percy? How you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me on the podcast today. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely glad to have you. You're looking swole, man, in the JMU t-shirt. I love it.
Yeah, just trying to get big, working hard every day. You know, I got goals to reach.
There you go. I know we've got a guest questionnaire going out today, but real quick, what's going on in your world? What are you up to today? Are you still in the Maryland area? What's going on in your life?
Actually, I've been rehabbing and training a little bit back at home, and I'm just working to get back on my feet. I'm around 80-90%, and I'm just working to get back to my old self and get ready for the opportunities I have in the fall.
Awesome. Love to hear it.
Percy, I wanted to bring on my son, James. You guys have met a couple times. You guys met back at Meet the Dukes Day last year and got a little photo op. James is a big fan of you the whole year, talked about you at school. And then I think the last game outside the locker room, we had another chance to meet you. So James wanted to come on and ask the first question today to kick things off. So James, go ahead and ask your question.
What's your favorite football verse?
Memory.
Okay, my favorite football memory would have to be the Arkansas State game from last season, just because it was one of my best games in my career. And I had a crazy 4th and 1 truck. I don't know if you saw it, but I feel like that's a memory I'm going to remember forever. So that was my favorite memory.
That was a favorite. James and I, we were watching that game on TV, and I think we've recreated that scene a couple times in the backyard when you've run me over on your way to a touchdown. All right, James, say thank you to Percy and tell him goodbye.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Percy.
Bye. Great seeing you.
Well, I'll ask a good follow-up to that. Do you remember what actually was said to that poor guy that lost his mouth guard or his teeth or both when you smacked him so hard?
I have no idea, but I do remember KT was he was blocking on the outside, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, me and like the defender both stopped for a second to watch the play to figure out what was going on.
You sounded like a buck when you hit him. I was right on the sideline, and when you hit him, you made that sound that a buck makes when it wants to he was like, oh, that poor kid just like folded like a cheap suit. It was unbelievable. And I mean, I'm sure he's a wonderful guy, but yeah. That's one of my all-time favorite plays. I was going to ask you about that. The other thing I'm going to ask you about is, are you in touch with the running back room, the current running back room? And, of course, not giving up anything. How are they doing? I'm sure you're talking to them. How's everything going?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still talking to all the boys, checking up on them. They're doing great, and they're all excited for the season. They said that they got a lot of potential in the room, a lot of things that they want to show, and I feel like this year is the first year that they are really just taking the reins for themselves, and I believe that they're ready to just express everything that they've wanted to express and just be the best that they can be. So I'm excited to see what they can do this year.
Who's come on the broadcast is to give us a little insight into how they came to JMU. I know you all know about your story career, but really curious. Take us a little inside your high school recruitment and what that conversations were like. Obviously you had a different coaching staff than the coaching staff now that recruited you. So walk us through high school Percy Agyei-Obese and maybe some of who the other schools were that were interested in you and what was the ultimate kind of driver that led you to the Dukes.
So I think, as you guys know, that I started playing football in high school. So start playing football in high school, was terrible, was a terrible football player, had to learn a lot, honestly. Had to learn first downs were, and my biggest thing I always remember is they used to have me playing D, and they'd be like, watch the tight end. And I'd be like, which one's the tight end? Which one's the tight end? Not knowing like what was going on or anything. But going through high school, my high school varsity coach actually randomly moved me up my sophomore year and had me playing varsity. So that year, I mean, I just blossomed, learned a lot, and just, took in all the information that the coaches were giving me. And coaches started coming in after that year because I was making an impact on the team. Just like I didn't feel like I was making it that big of an impact, but I guess I was making a big enough impact that for coaches to start coming in. And then junior year is when I started just taking that role of trying to improve and just be the best that I can be. So I just started just trying to learn more and more about the game of football. And then that's really where I excelled. And that's where the real recruitment came in. And teams like JMU came in, Maryland, like Wisconsin, and just a lot of schools started coming in. And that's when I realized, okay, like this college football thing might become a reality. And from there, I took my visit to JMU, and that's when I was like, okay, this is the place. They just won the national championship. So had us in the national championship parade, took us around campus, was walking downtown, and I was like, the atmosphere and the love, and then just the community, the people, I was like, this is the place for me. So I talked to Coach Houston, talked to Coach Sims, and here we are today.
So Percy, a lot of us follow recruiting very closely. Maybe no one more closely than Michael Evangelista, but we'll see, especially now on Twitter and Instagram. There's so much focus on high school recruiting and who's getting offers, and players are really advocating for themselves in a really new world of the focus and the coverage on the inner workings of that. One thing I always wanted to give fans insight into is when you take that official visit to JMU, and I'm sure Coach Houston and Everett Withers and Mickey Matthews and now Kurt Signetti all had their approach. What was your official visit like? What is an official visit, that experience like? And what are some of the things that the coaching staffs show you and give you insight into helping to convince you to sign on that dotted line and make JMU your focus?
Well, during the recruiting process, they would always send mail and a mail and constant flyers and letters, and then when they finally bring you in for your official visit, they put you in a hotel. And they have you with the host. So my host at the time was Trey Sharp. I don't know if you guys remember him.
Yeah.
Great running back, even better guy. Yeah, he was my host, and pretty much for 3 days, he was my guide throughout JMU. We'd go to dinners, we go to tours of the facilities, of the campus, and go out, have fun, just meet the other teammates, meet the other guys, and just enjoy ourselves. So that's pretty much how the recruiting official visit goes. And they force you to have like a great time, and they just do a bunch of things, and you meet all the coaches, and it's really laid back, and it's a really good time at the end of the day.
Awesome. And then I guess maybe lastly on that, before we bring Michael back in, what was the deciding factor that led you to say JMU's the school?
Yeah, the official visit. The official visit. The official visit, and I would have to say the game. I had a game, and it was I think it was like Delaware versus JMU at home, and I was like, this is the place. You see the stadium rocking, the fans tailgating. It's just the love. We all know like JMU is a different place. Like there's no other school like JMU. Completely different. So I was just like, yeah, this is the place for me. Like I just want to be great here. And I just want to go to I want to go to school here. I want to be great here. This is an awesome spot.
All this recruiting talk's just getting me hyped up. I love it. Percy, thanks again for hopping on with us. And the topic of recruiting, look back on your rival's profile from 2016, it looked like Towson was going after you a little bit. And you also mentioned Wisconsin and Maryland. Let's have some fun with this. Any last minute offers of maybe folks trying to pry you away from JMU at the end there before signing?
Towson offered me literally the day after I got offered from JMU. The day after, and it was crazy because I've been to a Towson camp before.
Yeah.
And they offered me the day after, and they're just like, yeah, you should come stay at home in Maryland, all this and all that. So that was them, and there was just Towson was the main one pretty much just because it was right after. And so them and UNC Charlotte too was trying to really get me over there.
That's great. I mean, it's always interesting, right? Like, obviously, I follow recruiting super closely, and seeing someone like you that had so many offers and different like conference rivals go after you I was very excited. Not National Signing Day in 2017 to have you on board. You're one of the many actually players to play for both Coach Cignetti and Coach Houston. So I'd love to kind of hear from you. You mentioned Trey Sharp and others. What was like the biggest difference in terms of style of play or maybe technique wise as a running back playing for two different head coaches?
I would say the biggest difference would just be the coaching style in itself. Coach Houston had more of that militaristic, disciplinary kind of coaching style where you had a place and there's a time and place to be at all times, you know what I mean? Whereas with Coach Cignetti, he was more laid back and put more of the responsibility on the players, you know what I mean, to do what they needed to do and handle their business and their responsibilities. So I think that's the difference between the two coaching staffs. And whereas the scheme comes into play, I don't really think much changed. For both Coach Houston and Coach Cignetti, we like to run the ball, and we did very well in the passing game as well. And special teams was also a focus for both coaching staffs. So when it comes to the scheme, I don't think there was too much of a difference in that.
Yeah. I think back to, you probably saw it when you were getting recruited, like the 2016 game versus Sam Houston, where the offense and the defensive line were just dominant, and that's just been JMU's pedigree, right, ever since. So awesome. Great to hear the insight.
Percy, kind of going off of Michael's question about the difference from one coach to another, talk about the difference of transitioning from one of the top FCS programs in the country into not just an FBS program, but I mean, right out of the gate, competing with the best teams in the country.
Well, I mean, just going from FCS to FBS, to me, I feel like the difference wasn't extremely too much of a factor. I feel like the only difference that I spotted out was there was more key players, like more special players here and there, where this D lineman is very athletic on this team, you know what I mean, or this safety is very good at covering the field, but then compared to like the rest of the team as well, I felt like it was pretty much similar to some of the physicality that I was used to when it came to FCS football, usually during like the playoffs or just the harder teams, you know what I mean, that we would experience. But yeah.
And kind of this is going to be a little bit of a tangent from that last question, but my background on the development side, the external operations of college athletics, I'm always interested in kind of like the postgraduate experience, both for our alumni and for our former student athletes. And I have to harp on a clip that Michael shares on Twitter almost daily during recruiting season, where it's you at the post-game press conference and you're just, no one told you to say this. No one was coaching you up to say this. You're just saying, if you want to come and play good football, this is where you got to be. This is where you got to come and play. And I'd have to admit that I bet there's a few recruits that are on this team right now just from hearing such a sincere endorsement of the program. Talk about what you were feeling at that moment to just really communicate that and what that means to you.
I mean, I was just just feeling the feeling everything coming in of just having the last game and just looking back on my journey through JMU. And I mean, I feel like just through everything that I've been through at JMU, through the different coaching staffs, coaches, strength coaches, academic staff, and just my experience as a college student as well, I feel like that I was able to advance as a person and as a football player at JMU. And I feel like the amount of opportunities that presented themselves was just great. And any person that comes to JMU, I feel like they would have that same opportunity to grow and be the best version of themselves.
Well, it's a selling point that I think will ring true for years and years to come. I don't see Michael stopping sharing that video anytime soon. So,
well, I hope that it brings in some more recruits, and I hope that someone comes to JMU and they're just like, I saw that video, I took my chance, and here we are today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. No problem.
Percy, when you coming back for a game? Are you coming back a couple times, or are you going to be able to with your workout?
Yeah, I definitely plan on coming to a couple games. I definitely want to be at that UVA game. I know that's not a home game, but I mean, probably homecoming, family weekend. Yeah, I'm not too far. It's only 2 hours down the road from me, so I do plan on coming back and cheering on the Dukes.
Well, that UVA game will be a home game. You don't have to worry. It's what it's going to feel like Richmond. It'll be Bridgeforth East, just like Richmond was when we used to take over that stadium. Let me ask you on your comment you made about Coach Signetti putting it on the players. I want to amplify that a little bit. Can you explain kind of what that means when a coach puts it on you as a player, just so everybody out there kind of knows exactly what you're talking about?
So I think when it came to Coach Signetti, he saw that we had a lot of older guys on the team, a lot of older guys that understood what it took to win and what it takes to lead the team in the right direction. So he put it on us to create that connection with the rest of the guys on the team, to direct them, to direct the younger guys and show them and lead the way. This is how you win games. This is what you do off the field. This is what you do on the field. This is how you handle your business. And so, I mean, we had talks. We had our leadership council that we would have weekly to just talk about what things that we needed to fix, what things that we needed to eliminate, and just, everything that was needed just to improve the team.
So more allowing you guys as the leadership council and as leaders on the team to hold your other fellow teammates accountable, as opposed to the coaches just screaming at you. It's on you guys. If you want to win, you guys figure it out and get your guys in line. Is that kind of how it is, or am I misinterpreting it?
No, 100%. Because at the end of the day, the coaches can only say so much to players. And obviously, like, the players have the respect for the coaches. They're going to listen to the coaches. But within the locker room and within your teammates, there's a lot of respect that's really there. Like, if I say something to a younger guy on the team, it's going to mean a little bit more to some people than a coach saying something to them, because I'm with them more. They see me every day. I'm closer to them. So if I'm saying something to them that they need to clean up their act or whatnot, they're like, okay, like, he knows what he's doing. He's been in my place. He's successful. I understand. So yeah, he understands that it plays a little bit more of a role when you're having someone that's a teammate say something to you rather than a coach.
Does that help when you have Coach Miller? I mean, he was a star at JMU. I'm imagining when he looks at you and says, I know what you're going through. And, it's a little bit more coming from a guy that has been in that locker room and played on that field.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, he understands. He understands it. Yeah, we played together. We played together for a year, and he's been through the camps. He's been through those wins and losses and those hard days and, those good days as well. So he understands, and it's good to have someone like that to communicate with them, because he has a respect for me as well in a different sense, just because he knows I'm an older guy and I'm a little bit more responsible, and I've just been there, you know what I mean? So just being able to talk to him just genuinely throughout the season was just big on his part and my part.
And Percy, before we get to a fan question, we always like to reset the conversation. So the people who are listening on our audio only version on the podcast platforms, you're listening to JMU Sound Off, a conversation with former James Madison University running back Percy Agyei-Obese. And we have a comment from Facebook. Mike Morris wants to know, Percy, how did it feel having to split the load between four guys? And how did you get into a rhythm during your time at JMU?
Okay. Hey, how you doing, Mike? But just having to split the load between four guys, I honestly didn't think too much into it because my mindset was whenever I have the opportunity, I'm trying to make the most out of my opportunity. So when it came to having that rhythm, I had to develop the mindset of if I get this chance to be in the game, I have to make the most and I have to make a play. So I have to make that play because I know that another running back behind me is going to make that play or someone else is going to make that play. And I know that if they're going in the game and they're making plays and they're scoring touchdowns, that I have to keep that standard and do my thing as well. So just being able to develop that rhythm sometimes didn't even play a role in it just because there's just so many running backs there and I just have to take advantage of the opportunities that was given to me.
Awesome. And then another question from Facebook is, with the transition from FCS to FBS and the ban of postseason play, what was your drive to compete and put in the grind every practice and every game during your tenure? And that was from Jared Sherman.
Yeah. So yeah, my drive is I have a self drive in myself of just chasing excellence and everything I do, like on the field, off the field, whatever I do, I'm intentional with what I do. So just going out to practice every day, like I want to be the best running back that I can be. And even though we didn't have, you know, the goals at the end of the season for postseason play or whatnot, I still want to be the best Percy, the best version of the best running back. And I still wanted to go out there because it was our first year FBS ball. And I still wanted to prove that we can keep up with the big dogs or whatever you want to call it and show them that JMU can play some football.
So Percy, we focused on the last couple of episodes and trying to give people a behind the scenes look of what's likely going on with the current roster as they move through training camp. So we've now gone through 3 weeks of that fall camp, the second scrimmage taking place. Give insight to what's likely happening, not just on the field of practices right now, but also in the meeting rooms, for those current versions of the JMU football Dukes that are they're really getting towards the grind of that, but also really gearing up for the last week of camp and then game week prep, which will start after next Saturday's practice.
Okay, so now on the way to camp, like they're I'd say what are they, about 2 weeks out from the game?
Yeah, so yep, 2 weeks.
2 weeks out from the game, things are starting to tighten up. You're starting to realize the starting positions, the starting roles, and they're starting to eliminate the scout team. During camp, there's a big group of people that are going to be on the scout team, and they're going to be rotating, coming over. There's going to be a lot of people rotating through reps. Now we're moving more people to a different group of the scout team that's going to be for practice play, for the season play, more as instead of camp play. So we're starting to tighten it up. We're starting to establish the depth chart and realize the roles of everyone on the team and pretty much starting to see who's going to be on the bus. So as we're starting to do that, we're starting to now get ready for the first game and look at some film involving our first opponent and things of that sort. Mm-hmm.
So let's mix it up a little bit here, Percy. Going back into, I think, 5 or 6 years at JMU, who was the best defender you faced in practice? So on the roster, and possibly the best maybe linebacker or safety defender you played on the opponent's side.
Okay. Best defender I've faced on the roster. I would have to say Isaac Ugwu, just because I just had a lot of experience just going against them. You know what I mean? We had we just had a lot of time because we've been there so long together. So we've had a lot of
y'all
time
came
just to.
on the same class, right? Back in 2017.
Yep. And he kind of remembered my moves and what I do, and I kind of remember what he did. So it was pretty much an iron sharpened iron type of mentality that we've had throughout the years, and had to figure out different ways to get past each other.
Yeah, so if the scouts ask you if you have any experience against top competition, you can say, "Hey, I played SEC competition my entire career."
Exactly. Every day at practice, getting used to it.
Love it. How about on the opponent side, right? Like, is there any specific defender, linebacker that you played against? You're like, "Hey, that was a dude right there."
Opponent side, I would have to say, what game? I'd say it's a Richmond D lineman. He plays for he got drafted this year. He went to Wake Forest, transferred to Wake Forest. But yeah, we're kind of going back and forth a little bit. We're actually no. There was actually another one, an ODU linebacker actually this year, small guy. We're kind of going back and forth a little bit, and I just like that competition, just having somebody where it's that iron sharpens iron mentality. Sure. And yeah, he was just allowing me really to like get into my game and just really play that elite game of football and just tap into my tool bag. So I really enjoyed that.
Percy, I had so much confidence in you when you said, "Oh, it's not the Richmond player," but then you switched to ODU, man. You broke my heart there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's good. That's good. They've got some good ball players over there. One last question here, and then we'll go over to Taylor. So, when you think of like your career at JMU, defining moments, etc., I remember when you had that 70-yard run against Robert Morris in 2018. You look at like being a leader on the team. Is there anyone like on the roster today that you're like, maybe you had under your tutelage or you're excited to see, maybe break out this season? I was curious if you had someone on your mind.
I mean, I've got a lot of younger teammates, just like I call them my little brothers, and I feel like they're ready to go. Jamry, Chroma, Jeremy, Jarius, Cheese, if you know Cheese, Kalon. Kalon is his first year gonna be one of the guys. Him, Latrell Palmer. Yeah, I mean Solomon, you already know Solomon, but just a couple of those guys, and I'm ready to see them really take on the role of being a bigger part of the offense. Reggie Brown, this is his first year really being that leader on that team.
No doubt.
And I'm excited to see him. Jaden Mines,
he had that nice catch on the highlight tape this past week.
Yeah. He's a guy that he's got a lot of potential, and he's ready to go. So I'm excited for that as well.
Percy, we talked a little bit pre-show about what's going on in life right now. So give us some insight, rehab, training, and the opportunity to play at the next level.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been rehabbing, and every day I've been rehabbing and training at a training facility with a trainer. So pretty much just trying to get back on my feet, and I'm starting to feel like my old self as well. So once I get back on my feet, I'll be heading to an NFL prep facility.
Okay.
And then I got some opportunities in the fall, and teams are just waiting for me to get back on my feet and be healthy. So just ready for that and just waiting for those opportunities.
Well, that's great. We'll be following you all along the way. And, everyone's been kind of sharing some of their favorite moments. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was Norfolk State was your first game as a Duke, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you put up triple digits on the ground that day. That's just one of those days where I feel JMU consistently reloads at the running back position. And I remember at that game, you were a freshman, you were coming in, and that first game putting up over 100 yards. I said, this guy's going to be something special. And I think not only your performance on the field, but again, I'm going to go back to when we brought on James to ask a question. As a dad with a son, you've just been a great ambassador for the JMU program. And I really appreciate everything you mean to JMU, and hope you continue to stay involved and engaged in the future.
And I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And then, I mean, I wanted to make an impact to JMU and the community just coming to JMU, like when I first arrived here. And I mean, that means a lot just hearing that that impact was made. And it was great to see James here again. I love his questions.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Percy, before we let you go and we move on with the next segment in our podcast, we've asked every former player who's joined to give us their prediction for the upcoming season. We know obviously you have a little bit more of a unique perspective on this, being so close to so many players on the team, but either a prediction or at least your high level thoughts on what we all can expect to see from this version of the JMU Dukes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these guys this year, I mean, they're going to shock a lot of people. So I'll give them I'll give them 10-2. 10-2. 10-2. This year they're gonna handle business. I'll give them the 2 just in case you have those off games or whatnot. In my opinion, you know, I'm a very optimistic person. I think we're gonna win every single game, every single opponent that we play, you know. So I really would go 12-0, but 10-2 would be my guess.
And then Percy, actually, this is the last thing I'm going to ask you is, as we've all said, we've used that video clip from you in that post-game press conference so much in recruiting. So give us another video clip. So if there's a recruit out there in the high school football landscape or a transfer who's thinking of JMU, what's your 30-second pitch to get Kurt Signetti to say boom again on Twitter, as he likes to do, saying we got another one? What's your message to any recruits out there in the landscape? Why JMU?
All I want to say is chasing greatness, you chasing excellence, JMU's the place. Doesn't matter where you're at, what level of football, how much you know. You go there, you will be the best version that you can be. So that's my words of wisdom.
Awesome. Well, you gave us our next video that we'll be sharing. So just once again, on behalf of JMU Sound Off, thank you for not only joining us tonight, but thank you for everything you gave to JMU. As Taylor said, there's never been a better ambassador for this program. And that's saying something, because there's been a lot of great people to wear that jersey and people who have done it with pride and dignity, and you did it all. And I can tell you from as a parent, as like Taylor, you're one of the players that we point to when we're showing the kids the game, because you did it the right way. And I know every one of us and anyone listening to this, if there's any way that we can repay the favor that you gave to all of us by committing to JMU and representing the university so well, the answer is yes, as we help you in the next stage of your life. So thanks again, and we hope you come back for future episodes as we get your perspective on what we're seeing this season, because your voice is valuable and you always have a platform here.
I really appreciate that, John. I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Had a great time, and I'll definitely be back in the future, so just let me know.
Awesome. And with that, we're going to take a quick break here on JMU Sound Off, and with a message from our sponsors at the Montpelier Collective. And when we come back, we're going to be looking at the JMU football home schedule for 2023, giving our thoughts on what you, when you come into Bridgeport, might see from the Dukes. So with that, we'll take a quick break. You're listening to JMU Sound Off.
I'm Mark Byington, head basketball coach at JMU. The most significant change has taken place in college athletics the last couple years. It's name, image, likeness. We form a collective called the Montpelier Collective, and that's a way to support our student athletes. We want to retain them, we want to be able to recruit, we want to win championships at James Madison. This is crucial for our success, and we need your help. Go Dukes!
And once again, welcome back here to JMU Sound Off, the second segment here on episode 4, season 2. We're going to look at the 2023 home schedule that begins in just under 2 weeks, with the Dukes kick off against Bucknell, and want to bring in all 3 members of our broadcast team to join us in the discussion. First of all, great conversation with Percy. He was everything we knew he would be, an incredible ambassador to JMU football. But looking at the current Dukes, who will kick off against Bucknell, in the first opportunity for fans to experience some of the changes that JMU will be bringing to Bridgeport Stadium this fall. A new ticket app that was launched this week that fans are going to be able to make it a little easier to download their tickets, the experience of engaging with sharing those tickets and transferring them to fellow fans as well as getting game day information directly on your smart device. If you haven't downloaded that app, a lot of helpful instructions and information can be found at jmusports.com. I know JMU has been sharing that information on their social channels as well. But I'll round the horn, start maybe with you, Michael. Any thoughts other than Bucknell, our first opportunity to host an FCS team in week 1 in Bridgeport Stadium, and a tune-up game, an opportunity to see exactly what we have on this roster. A new quarterback will have the opportunity to start game 1. Could we see both quarterbacks potentially in that? But more importantly, just an opportunity for people to dust off, obviously, the tailgating gear that's been maybe in the shed or the garage for so many years. But Michael, what are your thoughts on week 1?
Yeah, I was going to say, contrary to popular belief, I mean, I'm worried. Bucknell comes from a very storied conference from the Patriot League. And last time I checked, we're 0-2 against them in the playoffs. So as people know, Bucknell plays in the prestigious conference that Colgate also arises in. So this will be interesting in week 1 if we can show up against a Patriot League foe. But I'm just kidding. No, I think this is going to be it's going to be an exciting day in the Berg. 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, it's going to be a beautiful day in Harrisonburg. I think this feels a lot like I'm dating myself a bit here, but 2010, right before Virginia Tech, we played Morehead State. And we came out in a pro-style formation with Drew Dudzik handing the ball off, I formation the entire game. And then we came out in the pistol the next week against Virginia Tech and quote-unquote stunned them. I think there's going to be some smoke and mirrors. We're going to hand the ball off. I think Luttrell's going to get his numbers. Killen's going to get his numbers. We might see a couple of end arounds, things of that nature. But we dominate up front. I think it's going to be a good, easy win and a beautiful day in the Valley.
Yeah, I get to play in 2 weeks. There's so many people that are going to get to play. I still have eligibility, and I think I get to play. That's going to be a wonderful weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing everything we have on the roster. If you're on that team, you're playing that day. So I imagine it's going to be rather vanilla, but who cares? It's going to be like the William & Mary game when we had I'm losing the guy's name, the running back that played quarterback. Daquan Scott. So when Daquan Scott, and all we did was run left and one right, and he just went for 300 yards. So I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of just overpowered everything in all 3 phases. Looking forward to it and getting sharp for UVA. I'm not looking past Bucknell, but I kind of am looking past Bucknell.
I think the reality of the situation, they are an FCS opponent, but we've been there in those shoes before when we were the FCS opponent, and you listen to some of these pregame shows and how they talk about JMU. So I do think it'll be an opportunity to see our players, and we have a lot of guys in new positions for the first time against real competition. And I think it'll give the coaches an opportunity to really see where they want guys. I do want to give one shout out to Bucknell that some people might not know. They are the first. It was Bucknell versus Miami in the first ever Orange Bowl in 1934, and Bucknell was the winner. So the original Orange Bowl victor will be coming to Bridgeport Stadium for the first game. So there's the reason for your ticket to admission.
Yeah, and we should also mention to give another plug to our sponsors at the Montpelier Collective that week 1 there is going to be a kickoff event for the Montpelier Collective. So stop by. We'll be sharing some information on the broadcasts leading up to that week. And you can also follow the Montpelier Collective on social channels. They're sharing information about that. It's a free event, live music, and an opportunity for you to come by, meet everybody involved with the Montpelier Collective, as well as learn how you can get involved. I know Cliff Wood is spearheading that event. And I know he would be remiss if he didn't mention that, and also encourage anyone listening to stop by, because we know it's going to be a really fun opportunity. So transitioning obviously from Bucknell into our next home game will be on September 30th. That is a family weekend opportunity against South Alabama. At this point, when you look at that game, that's coming back off of 3 straight really challenging road games. Obviously the trip to UVA we're all familiar with. This is a game that if I look at this schedule personally, the family weekend crowd is always a large crowd, but it has at least a reputation of not being the loudest crowd. Going back to you, Michael, what do you think about this South Alabama game, especially a team that's coming in preseason with a lot of hype, people really seeing them as a team that's going to challenge for the top of the western side of the Sun Belt, and a team that's getting a lot of national recognition?
Yeah, no doubt. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be all based on how we come back. 3 games on the road: Charlottesville, Mobile, Alabama, and then Logan, Utah. And I think the team gets back 2 in the morning on that Sunday, and then gets prepared to go play South Alabama. Really tough contest. I was doing a bit of just research. I think Kane Womack's going into his 2nd or 3rd year there, really transforming the program, really getting the program in a solid place. I think they were co-champions. Well, no, they finished right behind Troy last year. When you look at their depth chart and their roster, I think they return the most starters year over year than possibly everyone in the FBS. So it's going to be a tough test. You mentioned it's going to be huge crowd, potential, maybe even a record-setting crowd, right? However we want to look at that, but seasoned quarterback, tough offensive and defensive line. I think they were top 3 in the Sun Belt last year on defense. So that's going to be really interesting. So I trust by then we're probably going to be settled at quarterback. We're going to know who our running backs are. Our receivers are going to figure themselves out. But I think it's going to be a really strong test, and we're going to need everyone in there for all 4 quarters. Parent, student, sibling, you name it. That place better be buzzing.
Yeah, we get back actually at about 5 or 6 in the morning because we're flying back from Utah. That game won't end till midnight or 12:15 a.m. Eastern time. So then they got to get on the charter and get back. So they won't get back to Harrisonburg till 5 or 6. So it's going to be a tough week. There's not going to be, you can't do but so much game planning flying overnight on the red eye. So South Alabama, tons of respect. In fact, this is probably the hardest schedule I think we've ever had. Tons of respect for South Alabama, and I think that's a wonderful program. And I'm looking forward to the time when we can actually head down to Mobile and see them, but and be in their place. I know it's going to be a couple of years till we go through the West, but I'm looking forward to that game. I've got that game circled. That's a danger game. I think we're going to be 4-0 rolling into that game, and that is one loaded group of guys, and they've got a lot of dudes on that team. That's going to be a stacked up fight, and it's going to be a fight in the trenches. I'm looking forward to it.
And I'll just echo what Steve said. I think on paper, this might be the toughest competition to come to Bridgeforth. I don't know if it will be our hardest home game, because I think some other matchups there with the revenge factor and some rivalries, you could argue that they're the harder game. But I think on paper, South Alabama might bring the best team into Bridgeforth this year. And I think it's a game that everyone should make sure they're in person for.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts on that. And that transitions where you mentioned the revenge factor on October 14th as Georgia Southern comes into town. This, I have to say, of the games that I'm looking forward to seeing this season, this is one of the ones that I've really circled just because of how last year's game ended. I'm also intrigued to see their high-powered offense in terms of throwing the ball the way they do against our secondary that's now going to be a year older and who also had to really – their first experience of baptism by fire against Georgia Southern, where they were really put in some challenging positions. They're breaking in a new quarterback this season as well at Georgia Southern, but will be a test from Clay Helton's squad to see how they challenge our secondary, and can we continue to go kind of trading points as you'd expect this to be another high scoring affair. Michael, any thoughts on this? I know this was a game that we all really struggled last season with as we thought we were so close. One more stop, we get another victory, but your thoughts on Georgia Southern?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Personally, I went to the game and I saw them rush the field afterwards. And I said, man, we must have made it if Georgia Southern or another FBS team is rushing the field after a victory against us. It's going to be a tough one. Kudos to our buddies over at the Noah and Ferry podcast, but they had Helton on the horn a couple weeks ago, and they're very high on Davis Brin. He's a transfer from Tulsa, 6-year, 7th-year kid, and I think a lot's going to be on his shoulders. Right, how he can transition here, pick up that run and shoot offense, because they've got some dudes. Looking at Caleb Hood at wide receiver as well as Derwin Burgess. Derwin Burgess had that game-winning touchdown reception against Chauncey Logan to seal the game last year. So they've got a lot of weapons coming back, but we do too, right? So I think it's just going to be, what is Chauncey Logan, the Brent Austins, the Devin Coles, the D'Angelo Ponds. We've got 5 seniors at safety. I think it's going to be a redeem game for them and showing what they got from the secondary standpoint. I think we come out with a W, though. I feel pretty confident.
Yeah, we're winning this game. That's the most dominant offensive line I've seen other than ours. On the field, watching them, our defensive line struggled. I don't think we got to Kyle. I don't think we got to their QB once. He's only been sacked 7 times last year. If we got to him, I'm surprised. I don't think we got a sack. And that's a good group, fast, and they get the ball out of the hand. So I imagine you can do that once to a Coach Signetti staff. They're still smarting from that. I'm still smarting from it. That little guy that came up to me after the game and got in my face and was like, "Hail Southern." I'm like, well, you come to Harrisonburg, my friend, and I'll show you a little bit of hail, and it ain't the type of hail you're talking about. Can't wait.
I think echo all of that. On paper, I think Georgia Southern is in the bottom half of the teams that are coming into Bridgeforth. However, the revenge factor, there's going to be a lot of emotions in that game. And at the end of the day, I want to give credit to where Georgia Southern, I mean, they are a program that has a culture and a history that knows how to win. And I think there's a lot to say about when you get recruited to a program and there's an expectation there to continue to fulfill the history and tradition and prestige that your program has. So it'll be a tough game. I don't think that it'll be a game that we're blowing them out, but I think this will be a game we'll win, and I'm looking forward to getting that revenge factor on them.
Well, and speaking of bringing hail, which I still want you at some point to define what that means. I have a feeling there will be a lot of hail brought on October 28th, our homecoming game against ODU. This will be the first time that ODU comes to Harrisonburg since a game that I know many of us probably are still thinking about in our minds, the 2012 game against ODU, where probably one of the more ugly experiences I've had as a fan inside Section 109. We turned on ourselves. It was a rough aftermath to that game, but coming off of a 40-point win for the Dukes in 2022, where we were able to silence many of the critics who said, what can JMU do in FBS? And many of the ODU fans I know that I saw in comments, threads, and message boards who did not think we would have a great season in year one in FBS. This should be a party in Harrisonburg. Really excited for this game. I know I have a feeling all of you are as well. Mike, your thoughts on ODU, a program that I think is now rotating 3 or 4 quarterbacks through their preseason competition to see who's going to take the snaps in week 1.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. You brought back some painful memories, John. So this was my senior year at JMU. I brought a coworker to this game, or I think I was working with someone at the time, or maybe this was the year after. I forgot. I blanked out of my memory on this one. But that was a painful day. We lost 38-28. So we welcome the Monarchs back to Bridgeforth. And yes, it looks like they've got a rotating door quarterback right now. I know they brought in, I believe his name is, just pulling up the roster here, a Jack Shields. I think they're really high on him. He's a sophomore. They also brought on a transfer from Fordham. They just hired, I think his name is Kevin Decker. He was the offensive coordinator at Fordham last year to switch it up a little bit because last year's was a bit of a disaster. But tons of emotion going this game. Not only is it homecoming, so another potential record breaker in terms of attendance, but yes, 10, 11 years in the making. I remember after that sweet, sweet win in Norfolk last year, it was a huge fandom relief off my personal shoulders just to shut them up. All of us here remember the message boards before Twitter and all the back and forth around we're FBS and you're not, we're greater than you. Conference USA is the best. I am ready to demolish them in every way or form, in tailgating and on the field. So all of it.
Yeah, this game scares me, and it probably shouldn't, but they're not going to have a whole lot at that point to play for other than trick play after trick play. They got a defensive stud at linebacker. They've got some talent on that team. The Fordham OC is good. And if they can get them together, and I don't know that they can, but this is the game that bugs me because I have a feeling we're going to roll into that game either with 1 loss or undefeated. And this has the feel of Richmond 2015 game day at JMU. And I hope I'm wrong. And hopefully I get rid of that feeling by the time we get closer to that. But they've got revenge on their minds. We came into their place in Norfolk. We tailgated in their lots more than they did. We took over that stadium relatively quickly. So my hope is that's not going to happen. But this one scares me a tad. Maybe I shouldn't be scared, but it does bug me.
I agree with you, Steve. I mean, there's like Michael was talking about, there's a lot of question marks on this ODU team, but where this game falls in the schedule, a lot of those question marks will be gone by that point in the season, whether good or bad. And I think if those question marks trend in the more positive manner, it becomes a tough game. if it trends the more negative manner, they come into that game with just nothing to lose. I mean, they just got to go out there and win at all costs. And so I grew up in Virginia Beach. I grew up going to Old Dominion basketball games. I, have a lot of connections to Old Dominion, both personally and professionally. And I just remember this was a game that over and over, it was tough to not have that win. I do want to give a shout out. I don't know if anyone's listening, if this person's listening, or if they know this person at the Old Dominion game this past year in Norfolk. There was a kid that was going through the JMU section. It was picking up all the streamers and tying them to the Old Dominion football stadium. And at the end of the game, you had just dozens and dozens, if not over 100 purple and gold streamers coming off the Old Dominion section. So I'm making this promise to anyone listening. If anyone knows who that kid is, we would love to have them on the week of the Old Dominion game later this year. So let's try to find them. And but thank you to that kid.
Yeah, and I'll just say last point on the ODU game, and this was the game when we were all talking about moving to the Sun Belt. It was ODU was one of the schools that we were all mentioning the opportunity to play on a consistent basis. And what's so great about the Sun Belt is so many of these games, we have connections to history. We'll get to App State in a few minutes, but we have a rich tradition of playing these programs. We've got some great wins in our history. We've had some really tough losses. But I agree with some of the comments about this being a game where you just never know what you're going to get in these rivalry games. And I have a feeling that we're going to have more close games than blowouts in this series between these two programs. And at the end of the day, it's more than just what's happening on the field that day. It's a battle for recruits. It's a battle for the brand recognition of Virginia. And those bragging rights have a lot of impacts in a lot of ways across the football landscape here in Virginia. Transitioning to November 11th, a late season non-conference game as UConn comes to town to play the Dukes, a team that went to the Myrtle Beach Bowl last year. A program that over the last decade has really received a lot of kind of national mockery, but recently has pulled themselves back into respectability, and a program that has received some positive attention over the last 12 months. Your thoughts, Michael, on a game where we'll get an opportunity to have some G5 bragging rights as we look at an opponent where we can match up the Sun Belt against another conference who is consistently trying to kind of have the top ranking in terms of G5 conferences in the country.
Yeah, this is a fun one and an interesting one at that. I think we're old Yankee conference rivals. I think anyone would fact check me there. But back in the day when UConn was also FCS, interesting game. Honestly, don't know much about UConn. I'm sure we will in the coming weeks, but Jim Mora's over there doing a great job, the former Atlanta Falcons coach. So obviously getting some good players up there in Connecticut. From an X's and O's perspective, this is an interesting one. UConn runs a 3-4 scheme. So they got 3 down defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, pseudo defensive ends on the outside. And that's supposedly their strength on the team. Their 4 linebackers, I think, are all conference. They're all veterans. They're gonna wreak havoc. So it's gonna really test our offensive line. And at the end of the day, that's gonna make or break the game for us. And I think Marshall came away with a W last year against UConn in the bowl game. So I trust we'll figure it out, but we'll know more. We're deep in November now, so it's going to say a lot of where JMU is at that point. Hopefully healthy.
Well, the good thing about it with UConn, UConn plays a common opponent with one of our other opponents. The week before they play us, they play Tennessee. At Tennessee. So I have a feeling, but that's going to be their 3rd road game once they end up to us in a row with Tennessee the week before. That's a good group of folks. They played well against Marshall. They have a tendency of, unfortunately, at least last year, maybe they fixed it, but they throw a lot of picks. I think Marshall had at least 2 picks. They had at least a pick 6, as we just saw on the screen. But they played Marshall tough, and they're not going to just lay down. Last time we played them in Bridgeforth, I think we beat them 63-3. It was some ugly score, but it's been a while. So looking forward to seeing my UConn folks. I spent a year in law school up there. My last year of law school I spent at UConn. So looking forward to seeing them come down. But I have a feeling this will be a nice tune-up for us as we get ready for the next game that we'll highlight in just a few minutes.
I was actually looking up those scores, Steve, 48-14 in Bridgeforth the last time they were there. And we are, old conference mates for a little bit, I think both in the Yankee conference, the A-10 for a bit. So this is kind of the renewal maybe of some of those old games back then. But just to bring on some of the points y'all made, I think UConn is an up-and-coming program. I think when you have someone like Jim Mora, who's been a head coach at the highest levels, both in the NFL and college, you just can't underestimate what this team can be. Having said that, I think this is a game that we should win if we have the team that we all think we do. But I'm excited that a team like UConn's coming into Bridgeforth.
And then finally, our final home game at Bridgeforth Stadium this year on November 18th against App State will be Senior Day. And I brought out a picture from the last time that JMU played App State was on September 20th, 2008 at Bridgeforth Stadium. And I know for me, I've heard this from many other people, my favorite game I have ever attended as a sports fan, not even as a fan of JMU, but as a sports fan in general, was the victory in Harrisonburg with the fireworks of the old stadium before the renovation against App State, and at an opportunity for us to have what I have no doubt will be another classic when these two teams get together on the field. Obviously, last season proved that point again with JMU getting the comeback, but a program that is used to obviously being at the top of the Sun Belt, a proud and storied program that has a lot of success, not just in the Group of Five, but in those games when they're playing up against the larger P5 schools. Obviously, we all know about what App State did to Michigan. We know what they did to Texas A&M, a program that needs no introduction. But I feel like if I look at this schedule and think about what's going to break the attendance record, it's that game on November 18th, because this program means a lot to a lot of JMU fans, and I have a feeling that their fans are also going to travel very well to Harrisonburg. Michael, I know you'll be in the stands for that game. Your thoughts on what, for me at least, is our top rival in this conference and the program I'm always going to circle each and every year.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? I talked about ODU loss being my senior year. This game, the 08 game that we're seeing, was my freshman year. So I started off my JMU fandom with a bang. But this is going to be a fun one, right? November 18th. Who knows? May get some snow, maybe not. We'll see what type of crowd shows out. It's going to be really interesting. If we go into this game undefeated, I think, John, you're going to be right on the head in terms of record. But this is all going to be dependent on what Sean Clark can do. A lot of the murmurs from the App State camp is there's some cultural things going on internally. They hired a new strength and conditioning coach. There's a quarterback battle. They brought in a transfer, but they also have an upcoming high school recruit that they brought in 2 years ago that they really like. They're breaking in some new offensive linemen. Their starting center, who's from the great county of Botetourt, is now the starting center at Oklahoma per the transfer portal. So they've got a lot of holes to fill. But at the end of the day, story program, revenge game. They're coming up to Bridgeforth. It's going to be a battle up front. It's going to be about the line of scrimmage. It's going to be a slobber knocker, as they used to say it, right? So I think we come out with a win. We're going to find a way to grind it out here in late November. But another one of those games, John, that you talked about, where when we join the Sun Belt, this is a game where we're going to circle.
This is a wonderful game, and I'm going to do some wrestling analogies. Oh, what a rush. This is going to be wonderful. This is our rival. I don't count anybody else. Marshall's probably second. ODU's not our rival. I mean, come on. At the end of the day, it's App State. Well coached, great program, great fans. You're going to come up and we're going to have a blast. There's a way, and I'm not an engineer, but JMU, you can take a look at it. There's a way to put temporary bleachers in that stadium. If you got to clean out those hedges, clean them out. Stick some stuff back there. You got to put them in the gap between the new section and the student section now. Do it. I don't care how we've got to do it. Get those stands in there and let's get 30,000 people in there. If you don't put the stands in, we're going to have 30,000 people in there. Either way. So fire marshal, go home for the day, because there's going to be 30,000 people in there and we're going to rock their world in November. Cannot wait.
The JMU App State rivalry is everything that's great about college football. You think about the last three games. There was the heartbreaking fumble right before what would have been a game-winning field goal in Boone in 2007. And then, of course, the 2008 game, which App State, I mean, for all intents and purposes, App State had the 2008 game in the bag until Scotty McGee said, not so fast. And then, obviously, last year, you know, we're coming off the high of the Middle Tennessee State and Norfolk State games, but we know that this is our first real competition. That feeling that I got in my stomach, we're down 28-3. I was a row or two behind Michael. Michael was having some choice words with a fan literally about a quarter of the way over on the stadium. I mean, 4 or 5 sections in the end zone, and that banter was going back and forth. But just when I think of two of the best JMU games in memory are the 08, outside of the national championship games, the Virginia Tech game. I mean, the 08 App State and the 2022 App State games. they're just ones I'll never forget. It has the true making of what a college football rivalry should be. I can't wait for this to be the last home game of the season. I'm going to be amped. And it's also one of those games where at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what records are at that game. I mean, this will be one of our toughest games, regardless of where both teams are in the season.
Yeah, and I'm just saying right now, one of our fellow Sound Off contributors, Zach Price, who's going to be joining us for some future conversations over the coming weeks, he has to just go shirtless before the game. I don't care if it's snowing, if it's raining, whatever it is. He's going into the stadium, definitely looking like he did in App State, because that's was a huge factor, I think, in the comeback. But guys, obviously this is a really fun preview as you looked at all the home games at Bridgeport Stadium. If you're out here watching this and you haven't gotten your tickets yet, going to be hard to get, probably harder than seasons in the past, but JMUsports.com, as well as the various ticket exchange sites that I know are seeing a lot more action than maybe they have in some time. So if you're somebody who's maybe waited to get your tickets in the past, definitely look into them now over the weeks to come, as well as we'll preview the away games on next week's episode. But lots of opportunities for you to root on your Dukes, whether it's at home or on the road. And just looking forward to seeing big crowds wherever JMU takes the field this season. And with that, guys, we'll any last thoughts before we wrap and give fans an opportunity to hear what we have coming up on next week's show. All right. Well, thanks, guys, as always. And just one more shout out to Percy. Thanks, man. We really appreciate the support. And next week, we have an exciting group of guests lined up. Working on the confirmation, so stay tuned to our social accounts. This week, we'll have our promos that we put out each and every week to highlight who will be joining us in Sound Off. But our real main focus next week is going to be previewing that week 1 game against Bucknell as we get set for game weeks, as well as wrap-up content and other materials that we're going to be having over the weeks to come. We also have, as we mentioned in our introduction, some things that we are going to be bringing to our Instagram platform to bring you closer to JMU football, as well as our content from Sound Off. So stay tuned there. And again, thank you to everybody who's been listening. Thank you to everybody who's been sharing our stuff. If you like this episode, share it with a new JMU Duke this week so we can continue to grow this brand. And once again, thank you to our sponsors at the Montpelier Collective. We appreciate their support. And as always, to learn more about the Montpelier Collective, montpeliercollective.com. So on behalf of Taylor Atkins, Steve Brown, and Michael Evangelista, good night. And we'll see you next week on Sunday at 8 p.m. for JMU Sound Off. Go Dukes.